there.
It's 7 o'clock.
Oh, wait.
We're getting started. Okay, we'll call to order. Up first is 2-1, discuss removing commissioner from planning commission for numerous unexcused absences. Dave, you want to come up too? So you want to give the background, Dave, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll give the background. The planning commission's been, over the years, we always have to ask everybody to call in. We've had a number of unexcused absences, and really puts the commission at disadvantage. People come in, they expect to have a full commission there to help vote on things, and a lot of times the commission's been struggling to get people there. The person we have in front of you tonight, we counted since 2024, he's had 7 unexcused absences. We did understand he had some health issues, but needless to say, they're unexcused absences. So on early March, the commission voted, we had 6 members that night, 6-0, to say he violated the bylaws for too many unexcused absences, and that's why we're in front of you tonight.
So were there any efforts to communicate with them in those times? In that
Yeah,
time?
plenty. We went, I know my staff and myself sent emails out, tried to call. I know the vice chairperson actually went to his house and tried to knock on his door and leave his business card in the door to call him, as well as try to call him on the phone. So I know there was a reach out, there was a letter, formal letter that Mr. Williams sent to him.
Mhm.
How many absences, what is the normal that, in the bylaws?
The bylaws, they just rewrote the bylaws, but they were looking at 3 unexcused in a row. So if you don't show up, like we saw, last time we saw the applicant was October 3rd.
He hasn't been there recently?
He came to the last 2 meetings.
And you guys sent a letter?
Once we sent the letter is when he started showing up, stating we had voted to remove him.
Have you ever had to cancel a meeting because he wasn't there? Or you guys still are having your meetings?
I think there was one time, wasn't there?
I think there was one time we didn't have a quorum, but it goes for a lot of folks too, others, and just.
How many are on the commission?
It's 9, and we need 5 for a meeting.
So then a lot of them had to not show up.
Yeah, a lot of it, there's just one, can't make it, just because they ain't quorum, I can't blame it on one person.
And this is a volunteer position?
Yes.
No.
No.
Guys, now you're doing it.
So I guess the question would be is, do you think he didn't respond because he didn't want to, or was he unable to?
That's.
I mean, over 4 months.
We're not sure. He said he was in the hospital at ICU and they took his phone away from him. But the number of calls and voicemails we left and emails, we thought someone in the family at least tell us that. We didn't know for certain. We didn't know he's in the hospital at that point, or I should say we, the planning commission.
Do you know how long he was in the hospital?
I believe he said 3 months.
So 3 months?
I gotta
So
leave.
how many meetings would that be then, a 3-month period?
Well, we only had sporadic meetings. That came out to 3 meetings that he was unexcused. It would be one in,
The last 2 meetings that you guys have had where he was present.
Yes.
Is he verbalizing that this is too much and he's not
No.
gonna be able to make these
No, no,
meetings? Does he
no.
wanna stay part of the commission?
yeah, it seems like he wants to stay part of the commission. It's the hard part.
Has he commented that his health is stabilized? Or is it just a complete unknown?
That's an unknown. I don't know if it's stabilized or not. He shows up to the meetings, so.
Well, he's showing up now.
Yeah,
And I know
last
we
year.
have an issue trying to get people to even volunteer for commission.
Yes, yes, we do.
And my next thought is, if I was in the hospital for 3 months, let me tell you, something I volunteer for like that would not be on the top of my list.
Agreed.
And if he's showing up now, I think maybe you need to talk to him. Let's be realistic. I mean, that's kind of 3 months in the hospital.
I know.
Good
No, he
God.
was in Vegas.
When did he first get on the commission? Do you know?
2023?
Yeah,
Okay.
He's open 2026, it's 2024.
Okay.
He showed up before then, though?
Yeah, we have, since January 1st, 2024, we have a record of 7 unexcused absences.
And 3 of those were possibly while he was in the hospital? Is
Yes,
that what we're guessing?
yes.
So prior to his hospitalization, he had 4 unexcused absences, but the 3 that are on this agenda say immediate meetings prior to this motion.
Yeah.
So we're assuming that those are the 3 that he was in the hospital for. So
Yes.
4 unexcused absences in almost a year and a half, right?
Correct. And we found out about the, after we had 3 unexcused absences, that's, after the motion was made, that's when we found out.
I would
They
say,
was in the
But back to
hospital.
your point, that's like 40% of the meetings since he's been on.
I would suggest what Dean was stating was basic, I'd hold off, I'd talk to the guy before we talk about removing him. If you have a serious medical illness where you're in the hospital for 3 months, like Dean, on the list of my priorities, I wouldn't be calling in. I get the point, but
And his term is up next year, you said?
2026.
Okay.
We also have an applicant who's looking to get on the commission too. So
Oh,
So you're at 9?
we are fully up. So we do have a pending application if there is a vacancy.
Oh, okay.
oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you won't be, if he is removed, you're not going to be short one.
No. And the other guy I know has a lot of experience too with serving in various commissions, so he understands the process and, things like that.
Is there a reason you can't just put him on?
The applicant?
Yeah.
We have to.
That would be 10.
That'd be council.
Probably have to amend the
I mean,
bylaws.
you have people who are not showing up.
Is it
You
like an
get one
alternate,
more
maybe?
on it, what the heck?
Is it like an alternate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like an
State
alternate.
state legislation doesn't permit planning commissions to have alternates.
Yeah.
But CBA is not planning commissions.
Just an idea.
How do they notify you if they're gonna be out?
We send emails out repeatedly, tell everybody to confirm that they're gonna be there.
Any other questions for these guys? All right, thank you. 2-2, discuss the Gabriel Richard State Championship sign. Jeff?
Your Honor, I was, Gabriel Richard reached out to me after their recent state basketball championship, and they asked about putting a sign in the city. I spoke with Sohio, and Sohio instructed me the best way to do it would be to come forward into a study session with kind of a mock-up sign under a special event permit. Historically, these have been done in other cities for the high school teams, and historically, they're put on an entrance into the city. Pennsylvania Road, probably, by a Riverview sign. I think it's pretty straightforward. They would buy the sign, pay for the sign, and then we would install it on one of our, I talked to Jeff Webb, he said it would be no problem installing it on one of our poles. We would, sink the pole and put it up for them. I'm not sure if anyone's here from Gabriel Richard this evening. I didn't think they would be tonight, but I know they might be here next week. I think it's a good community thing, and so I wanted to bring it forward.
I don't think anybody will disagree with this.
Yeah, I think they deserve it. It's well deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For them.
That's pretty
And it might
awesome.
encourage the high school, our high school, to participate in something like that too, with all the teams.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't have a central place for all these signs, so maybe something we look at in the future, but I think it's a great idea.
I did have some experience with these signs where they try to put all kinds of signs in a central place, and they got vandalized.
Mhm.
They were placards and stuff. They seem to do better just on a metal sign on a
Yeah.
pole than everything together, but that's just in a different community, so,
So, was this something we need to put on the agenda for the
Yes.
next meeting?
yes. So how?
Kyle?
I'd like to see the size of the sign and how it's going to be mounted before we approve it. Now, the process is they can go through the county and go through a 3-month process of applying delay after delay, or they can come to the city council and get permission to use the special events right away permits, one-way jump that the city has for emergency. What may repairs, deep repairs, or road repairs, and special events. That's the fastest way of them getting the process permit, but we still like to see the size of it and how it's gonna be mounted.
So why don't we, what we put on the agenda, put
Yep.
contingent upon, if, you know, if something he agrees with.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, they did a great job. Okay, discuss the list of projects and corresponding cost estimates for the City of Riverview future bonding. Job.
All right, we'll call Ohio up and Ann.
Got whiteboard, this is serious.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
I have to practice my coloring. Let's turn it that way instead. So, and forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've been kind of discussing this project and where we're trying to lead with bonding for these specific projects. We haven't had the detailed list of the projects or the priority listing, so we felt we're now at that next step where we're going to finalize the project list and then we're going to start the bonding process. So currently we're looking at, we just talked to bond council, so if we agree in these projects in theory, and some of you have already approved, we're looking at approximately a 4.5% or 4.25% for 20 years for the $20 million not to exceed. We won't know that exact amount until the projects have all been bid out. So we're looking at that, and we won't have an exact interest rate or anything until it goes through the process, but that's what they're projecting, and the amount of the principal and bond payment will be about $1.5 million to the Department of Public Works. There is currently about $10 million, so cash flow would not be an issue, and those bond payments are incorporated into the current water rates. So,
And budget.
yep, and budget. So Ohio is here to present his priority list to you guys.
Does anyone have this?
I think so.
Pass-
So it's
pass
part
it
of the
around.
agenda.
Yeah. I think so.
Can I have one? I didn't print out
Sure.
the whole thing.
I'll give you one.
So I also.
Okay, these projects are all deemed to be critical to the infrastructure, especially utilities. You don't see any roads on it because the roads are funded through Act 51, but these here are going to be funded through the bonding, or bond issue. Not to waste much time, we'll start going through them one by one. Item number one is the connection of the Huntington area sewer system to the downriver wastewater utility tunnel. And this was on the agenda for years, since 2020. We finally got to go out for bids after the funding was pretty much, I'm not going to say secured, but planned. And we just opened bids. The bids came in at $5.2 million. Second bidder was 5.9. What we intend to do before we can recommend award in front of the council is to have a pre-award meeting with the low bidder to make sure he didn't leave anything on the table. We want to be comfortable that this price is solid. So that's going to happen this week sometimes. Then we'll come back with the recommendation to the city council. Again, this one was analyzed and studied because of the basement backups into the basements of the Huntington Meadows subdivision homes. And Fishback did a study in 15-16 with metering, and they found out that out of the 4 options they considered, this option was the most feasible. One of the options was to build a retention basin. One of them was to disconnect footing drains, which we know how that went in Riverview years ago. And the other one was to remove infiltration inflow, which is not guaranteed to be effective. So this was the most feasible option put on the table. The council had several presentations on it, and it was approved. Then we brought it up to the DUA board, and the DUA board approved it with conditions.
Good job.
It's fast.
And again, it's been in front of the city council. I don't know if it was in front of all of you, but most of you probably Susan remembers that, and it's a good option. And once it's in place, we hope that we don't have any more basement floodings. Last flood event, 40 basements were impacted by this project, by this rainfall event. So, any questions on item 1?
Yeah, what type of rain event is this? Like is it the 5-year rain, 10-year rain, whatever that would cause them to flood?
It depends. This gets complicated, but I'll give you a brief description what may impact the event. It could be a snowmelt. It could be saturated ground. It could be a heavy rainfall event that happens very quickly within 1 hour. We get like 1.8 inches of rain within 1 hour, where the system cannot handle the surge. And the variables are many, but it will be, I can't pinpoint a specific event. Let's say, I can't say it's a 100-year event, or it could be 1 hour, or it could be 24-hour rain event that could cause this to happen.
So didn't we have an issue with that creek backing up, and that caused some of the flooding at one point? The creek that goes through Patriots Park.
Yeah, the setting of this subdivision is very weird. It is practically built on a drain that gets enclosed. The whole topography of the ground goes toward where the drain used to be. So they fill the drain and they start building houses. So the sewers that are along the lower part of it don't have any risers coming up into the homes. When the sewer fills up, it backs up into the basement. Any rainfall event that comes in brings all that water to that low point and just overwhelms the footing drains, and the footing drains overwhelm the sanitary leads, and sanitary leads cannot get in because of the sewer capacity. Like Dean said, it's one of those situations where the drain enclosure didn't help the situation because it's some backups, and at the same time, it is an issue with the topography of the ground. It's an issue with the capacity of the system downstream. So all of these put together led to this backup.
So how don't we also have an issue with the size of the sewers going across 4th Street?
That is also correct. I mean, the downstream system doesn't have the capacity all the way till we get to the big sewer. By the time Lonsdorf pump station pumps in and the rest of the city come into that line gets overwhelmed very easily and backs up. Once it backs up, it starts causing flooding.
You said 40 basements are affected when this,
Only from that event.
just from this one?
Yeah, it could be events that may end up overwhelming 80 basements. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, I don't think we want to chance it
No,
anymore. Just
that's a lot.
Get it fixed.
So how could you, council wasn't here through that. I would say probably all of them weren't here when we were planning that. Can you expound a little bit on our exposure?
If you keep getting these events, and Randy may help with that, these residents may get a little bit upset and they may file a class action lawsuit against the city. And those are not cheap. I mean, we have to start settling. Because we know that there is a problem that we didn't deal with it, I don't think we stand a chance to win in that one. So, I don't know, Randy may want to just...
I'd rather not comment.
So in any case, we've seen cases in other cities where the municipality is aware of a condition that happens into their system and they don't deal with it and they end up losing a class action lawsuit.
So the fix is instead of the water backing up to the basements, it goes into the tank.
What we're creating is a redundant system,
And a
secondary
tunnel. Yeah,
system.
sorry.
So when the sewer system that's in place now gets overwhelmed, it rises up, it overflows into this new system that we're putting in, and that helps it divert it to the tunnel where there is more capacity available. So technically, we're creating a redundant discharge for the system.
We endorse that.
All right. Any questions on that one?
I mean, there's lots of history behind it. I mean, I can spend hours talking about it, but again, in a nutshell, this is what's going on. All right, under item number 2, the Lonsdorf Pump Station. That's a study that was done part of the SALT grant by Fishback, and part of the study they came up with a 1-year sanitary sewer CIP, and in the process, they identified 30 different areas on the Lawrenceville pump station that need to be addressed, and these vary from HVAC to the building, to the wet well, to the grinders, to the dry pit, to the pumps and piping and valves and controls. But out of these, we figured that we should target the most critical at this point. The most critical will be the pumps gotta work. If they don't work, we can't discharge the system. We'll end up backing up downstream all the way to King Road. And the wet well needs to be addressed. The wet well gets filled and doesn't discharge all the way down. So the incoming pipe from the Williamsburg part gets sedimented and loses capacity. When the pipe loses capacity, people upstream will start backing up. So we don't want to take that chance. We have to make sure the wet well is always pumped down and the pumps that are at the pump station are working properly, meeting EGLE requirements. And that's what we're trying to target with this particular project. Now, there are others that eventually will prioritize them down in the future. For the building, the site, the HVAC, all of these items will be addressed later on when we have more funding. Any questions on that? Okay, let's do it. Item number 3 is the sewer lining. The sewers downstream, the big sewers, are pretty much very old and they're starting to exhibit cracking and defects. We cannot afford any failures in that because that's where the whole city discharges before it gets to the DUA plant. If any of these pipes collapse, the whole city will back up. We have no way to discharge, then bypassing is very costly. I mean, you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars bypassing just to keep up with the flows. So these sewers are the blue area over here, down in the Valade area and down on Parkway, all the way to the West Jefferson. From there, it goes toward the plant. These are sewers that range in size from 30 to 36 inch to 42 inch. Now, if we end up with lower bids and we have already budgeted this, we can also target other sewers in the system that need. There are lots of sewers in the city that need to be lined. They were at one point lined with what we call an infiltration inflow liner, which is a very thin liner. But those are the smaller sizes, 8 inch, 10 inch. We're talking about 24 inch, 30 inch, 36 inch, 40 inch. These were not addressed. Those, some of them go back to 1919, so they're almost at the end of their life, if not beyond them. Like I said, we can't afford to have them fail, because if they fail, we have
What kind of
bigger
lines
issues
are
to do.
these? What kind of lines? What's these lines made of?
Well, we are facing some challenges. The liners are made out of epoxy, and the structural liner becomes very thick. Some of the lines that go past the railroad tracks are very difficult to line with that particular liner because we need to bypass them, and there's no mean to bypass under the railroad tracks. So we are considering what we call a spiral liner that you can open in place and unwind inside the pipe as it flows. It doesn't impact the flow. We don't have to
Didn't we have a
interrupt.
problem with that?
Had never used it before.
Back when we, remember the line we had on,
Talking Georgia Street?
I thought it was in
Georgia Street.
situ form, wasn't it?
yeah, but it had like a, it was peeling off.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a tape for the liner itself. That's the epoxy liner, but it was a thin liner that was used.
Okay, is that, are we gonna have that same issue?
No, this one is a ribbed liner with steel ribs inside of it.
Oh, okay.
It unwinds inside the pipe. It's structural at the same time. It seals. So
Are those clay lines? Those big?
some of them are clay, some of them are concrete pipes that are exhibiting, of course, H2S attacks. The H2S attacks the liner from the inside, eats up the pipe from the inside out. So they've all been televised, and the condition was already assessed, and they're considered critical. So.
One of the pipes were to have a catastrophic failure with that liner in there, is that enough to prevent it?
It's structural liner, so the existing pipe becomes a host shell with insignificant value. The liner becomes the pipe.
That's what I was
itself.
picturing, okay.
Yeah.
So how you had told us back a few years ago that hydrochloric acid, or I think it was acid,
H2S.
hydrochloric was heating our pipes up and the tunnel. Will this liner be impervious to it then? You're not gonna have to worry about the
This liner
hydrochloric
is-
acid eating them up?
It got a stainless steel ribs and got plastic element to it, so it doesn't get attacked by that material. Even the structural liner we're talking about elsewhere in the system doesn't get attacked by H2S. It's pretty much resilient to any attacks like that. Now, some acids may impact it, but we don't have any acid discharge in the city to worry about. So, okay. All right. Any other questions on this?
Is there anything on this list that isn't critical?
Technically, no.
That was what I was expecting.
We put this list together with most critical items on it because, again, I don't think the city wants to kick the can down the road anymore. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you. Eventually, we're going to get to a point that I wish we've done it earlier than that before any catastrophic failure happens.
I've had my basement flood before, so I know how awful.
You know how it is.
It's awful.
Well, I had 3 times already. I called it the storage for Riverview. So
Yeah.
when the city sold us the building, they never told us the basement flood. So. But anyways,
Wait a minute, you're an engineer, you should be able to fix that.
we did. We put plugs in. It impacted the people downstream. Now they're paying the price.
Yeah.
So, Highland, one other question. We had an issue back years ago with water main replacements. And we would replace the water main and then we'd have to tear the street up again. Are we coordinating that effort so that we're not redoing things over and over again? Are you coordinating it with the
Yes.
road repairs?
Yes. And if you remember when we did the Quarry Road, the city wanted to do Quarry Road and I insisted I'm not going to do it till you replace the water main under. So it was my first project and I thought I'm going to lose my job. But again, the city made a wise decision at the time. They did the water main first, then they did the road after, so we don't have to cut the road to repair the water main. So
Okay.
we look at all
Well,
of
we
that.
did do that in the past. We did Blade.
Is that on my shift?
Yeah, it was.
Not
No,
today.
you didn't put the street in, but it was, we had to cut it up we had to cut sections of it up.
That was the gas line.
Huh?
That was the gas line.
Was that the gas line?
I don't remember doing Valet. It was the gas line.
I'm getting
Because
old, I remember.
When we
You
did
remember more
Matthews,
than Wolf.
you know, when we did Matthews, we did the water main, then the road,
Right.
then McCann, we did the same thing, so trust me, I'm very cognizant of these
Okay.
issues, so.
I remember getting quite angry over some of it.
That wasn't on my shift. All right, item number 4, the sanitary sewer structural lining of Ray Street. There's a segment of Ray Street that was lined years ago, again with this, what I call them paper liners because they're not structural. So, a couple months ago, we had a person that wanted to repair a service on Ray Street behind 4th Street. And in the process of exposing it, they found out the pipe is eggshell, pretty much broken up apart. So the liner is barely holding it in place. The city ended up having to replace in the total of $15,000 as an emergency repair on Ray Street. That pipe is in that condition for the total length of it. So what we're recommending at this point, because of the depth of it, because of the number of leads connected to it, we're recommending putting a structural liner in, where the existing pipe on the liner becomes the hose pipe, the shell, and the structural liner becomes the pipe itself. Although it will be reduced in diameter, but the characteristics of the liner itself will improve the flow in the pipe. And it's much easier to go in and drill the leads from inside without having to dig 18 feet every single lead to reconnect them. So I think that's the best option to do it and to extend the life of the pipe another 50 years plus, not more. So that's a recommendation that we came up with to do. And, by the way, this was also listed on the CIP from the SAW grant that we did. So most of these projects, if not all of them, are listed on the capital improvement plan that the city put together, part of the SAW grant and part of the asset management plan. By the way, this is all asset management. So just like your house, you gotta worry about the roof, you gotta worry about the driveway, you gotta worry about the air conditioning and so forth. So that's how we're looking at these projects. Number 5, I'm sorry, anybody has any questions on the Ray Street?
You just mentioned a grant. What was the grant?
Saw grant?
SAW grant.
SAW grant?
SAW grant. Sewer and wastewater grant. This was, the city received, I think, $1.7 million to revise and analyze the system, come up with an asset management plan to tell you what needs to be done in sanitary and storm systems.
Was the grant through?
The state. Lots of people benefit from that. I think Riverview, Flat Rock, Gibraltar, lots of the areas around here applied it. It was a 10% match on the first million, 25% match on the second million. And it was like almost free money for everybody, so if I recall it right. Alrighty, if no more questions on Ray Street, we'll move on to number 5, which is water main replacement on Clark Avenue. This project had lots of water main breaks, and we already brought it in front of the council and got authorization from the council to extend B.D. Gary's contract to replace this pipe. So that's going to happen midsummer. It will be funded from the bond issue. Again, for Coaster, that main is also in a terrible shape. It keeps breaking. That was on the CIP list, on the asset management plan list. And it's a big report. If somebody want to read it one day, it got around 70 pages in it. So needs to be repaired, replaced. So we're replacing that main also. Again, it's all subject to your approval. Number 7 is the water main replacement on Dundee Street. That was a target for years, and we did the road on this one year. We just capped the road. We didn't
we did.
repave it. We just capped it. So, but
Because the guy came in complaining on it.
right. So it's time to replace the water main on, and eventually, when we have Act 51 funds, we'll do the road again. The last one is the water main on Ray Street. There's a small section on Ray Street that we like to also replace. It's showing lots of defects. This portion over here between here and Lonsdorf. So we like to get that also replaced. And that's all what's on the list.
So I have one
That's
question. The manholes, I know are a major issue, have been for years in our city. Is this going to take care of the entire problem, or is this just going
No,
to?
it's going to be, we're probably going to target the manholes along that large sewer runs for now.
Okay.
I don't think we have enough money to do the whole
I
city.
was going to say
so-
that's not near enough.
We are looking at new technology. It's spiral spraying the manholes from the inside, encapsulating them from the inside out with some sort of an epoxy material that seals it from infiltration inflow and gives it some structural strength. We did a pilot manhole on a city manhole that's in front of our building because the guy wanted to make a presentation to us. So we said, there's a city manhole right here, so he went and sprayed it for free. So if anybody want to take a look at it, we know where it's at. It's a good technology. We like to see if we can implement more of these repairs throughout the city, and that minimize the infiltration inflow, because very soon we're going to see the new rates coming in from DUA for regular flows, for excess flows. Jeff probably already took a snapshot at it this past Thursday. So there's lots of money for treating water that's not supposed to be in the system. And if we can save that, that would be great. We went through a program in Gibraltar where we lined sewers and fixed manholes, and it reduced tremendously their excess flows from going into the Truva plant.
Very good.
It's money well spent.
So I have a question. When they do these linings and do this work, do they camera it to make sure everything is good?
We camera it before, we camera it when
Okay.
they have to camera it because they need to know where the leads are, and they track by footage where every lead is,
Okay.
because once you line it, it dimples into that lead, but the tape helps them locate it so they can turn the auger and auger it back in to open it up. So it serves two purposes. First, you check and see if the liner is seated properly or if the leads are connected properly. Lots of times things happen. I mean, it's contracting world out there, so the contractor may not be able to inject steam fast enough to cure the liner, and the liner will collapse inside the pipe. Then they either have to remove and replace, or go in and auger it and remove it and reline it. That's why we do that before and after.
Okay.
Any other questions, Brian?
Question, maybe comment. So I'm happy to hear that we took advantage of the grant to help out with some of the costs for this. And seeing these 8 projects, the large price tag we have, and a whole pile of other capital improvement projects that are in the pipe, and lead lines that need to be replaced, you know, a lot going on over at the land preserve. I was recently talking to a friend from another city who mentioned the appropriations that are available from Congresswoman Dingell and Senator Peters, and I was just wondering, are we taking advantage of trying to seek out those appropriations to fund a lot of these large projects? And this is, I guess, to the whole table, not just Ohio.
They reached out to us, we've submitted projects to them, but for whatever reason, we historically we don't hear back from them.
Yeah, we've had conversations with Dingell's people, Riley Linting, and also during Campbell areas. We've submitted the list of our large capital expenses we have coming up, and we don't hear back.
Okay, so no words like too affluent or
No.
Not yet.
not paying enough taxes, perhaps.
Not yet.
In the past, the city applied, I remember, was it Paul Camilleri?
Darren.
No, before Darren.
Oh, it's
No,
legacy.
that was Paul Clementi.
Paul Clement.
Yeah.
Yes.
We applied for River Street for $400,000. We sent the application, and within a week, we received the check. So we do, if there's money available out there, we seek it, if we know about it. The federal appropriations through Congresswoman Dingell is good money. The only problem, it comes in with lots of requirements attached to it. You have to use the VABA requirements, prevailing wages, all of that stuff. And you cannot, if a component, for example, if you buy a pump that has a chip or a impeller or that's not made in the United States, you cannot use it, and you can lose the funding. So nothing's wrong with the money, but it comes in with a high price for tracking and for just making sure you follow the requirements and abide by the requirements, otherwise you lose the money. So,
I mean, is that an obstacle that's hard to overcome? I mean,
No,
for the
well,
amount of money that could be appropriated, could be.
in certain instances it is, like I'm trying to
Multi-million.
replace a mag meter on Gross Hill. That's the only partial flow mag meter that's made in the world, but it's made in Switzerland. And I wanted to use money from Congresswoman Dingell that gave us on Gross Hill, and I couldn't use the money, so we got to pay out of pocket for it. So, I mean, these are the limitations you have. You have to pick your projects with this money, so.
Right.
We
As
put
I
in-
understood, you actually had to have a project in mind, a design, a plan, and that has to be submitted. So it wouldn't be just like, you know, a whole list here that we have of projects and then see what sticks, right?
No, but sometimes with them, they come in and tell you, I can get you $3.5 million for your treatment plant or for your sanitary system, and they give it to you, but all of a sudden, you try to use it, then the EPA comes in. Oh, no. Take these courses first and see what's required and study them. Then, if you qualify, you can use the money. So it's not that they give you money, you can use it. You have to meet certain criteria to be able to spend it. But again, nothing is wrong with it. If there's some money available, we'll find a spot for it. We'll find a project for it.
Yeah, as I understand, the process is in the spring where they'll take applications for the projects for the upcoming appropriation cycle, which is usually awarded after April. Okay.
Meanwhile, we shoot for CDBG projects. There's CDBG money out there that we can use for parks, for recreation, so
Yeah.
we'll be
Young
in touch
Teachers
with
Park
those.
is going to be a good success for
Okay.
that. Okay.
All right, and the last thing is, so once if we feel that we are in this direction, the next council meeting will put a notice of intent out to the residents. You would have to approve it for the notice of intent not to exceed $20 million. It gets the ball started. It puts a 45-day referendum on there, so it's not a vote of the people, but you would have to get 10% of the last people who voted in the last election to sign a petition to stop this project, even though it has nothing to do with taxes. it's all water-based, but that's the next process.
But it's also appropriate thing to do, like this, for the
Right, you're putting it out,
transparency,
yep,
let
it's
people
part
know what we're
of,
up
it's the
to.
legality of
Uh-huh.
doing this whole project.
And again, how are we paying, or one more time?
Good idea.
With the water rates in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that mean we're gonna have to raise water rates?
No, I mean, from what we did, the 1.5 million is very doable, because in there would be like one water project, one not, but I think this is more than, the water fund is more than capable of taking on this type of thing for the next 20 years.
Just to clarify, was the 1.5 the interest on the bond?
4.25,
4 and a...
yeah.
Well, that's
1.5%
percentage
is the
rate,
payment.
right?
Yes,
Right, that's...
1.5 million is the payment.
And that's annual?
Yes, so 4.5 would be what's there. And in the event and the time, like when I did it, after so many years, this bond is callable, if the interest rate goes down, we'll recall it, we'll refinance it, just like we did your house. So we do kind of watch those rates.
But this, I think this really shines the light on, you know, water's not cheap anymore. And water rates are,
Gotta
they're
make
expensive.
things.
But it's not just the cost of the water, it's the massive capital improvements that we have to do that are all part of those rates. Is that it? Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they don't have a landfill to suck the money out of. Okay, we're gonna switch 2.5 and 2.4. We'll do the presentation by Victory Jim. Where is he? Over there. Mind coming up, sir?
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight.
How you doing?
Hi, Dave. My name is John Boozer. I'm Vice President of Victory Gym. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and our goal is to enrich veteran and first responder lives. We do this through dedicated conquering PTSD, through physical fitness, support, and camaraderie. Just a brief history of Victory Gym. It was started in December of 2015 by a former Marine who had seen several tours of duty and suffered serious PTSD. One day he found out that through physical fitness, it took his PTSD down. So with that, Victory Gym was born. Unfortunately, after a couple years, Mike decided it was a little bit too much for him. So another group came in and ran it, and Gary Clinton and I have been running Victory since past 5 years. We've made 3 different moves, and moving a gym is not fun. It's very time-consuming, strenuous, and yeah, we don't like it. We started out, Mike started out on Telegraph Road, then we moved to King Road, the old German Culture Club, which we had a land contract agreement. Unfortunately, they did not adhere to what our wishes were and sold the property underneath us, which forced us to really struggle to find a home. Fortunately, we were able to find a spot in Wyandotte on Ford Street, the old bingo hall. It's doing well. Our membership has grown tremendously. We like the location because it's more visible. So basically, we give free memberships to every veteran and first responder, active, non-active, retired. And we allow civilians to be members for a very nominal fee of $20 a month and $15 a month for students. There is no contract that you have to sign. We don't charge any additional costs for maintenance of our equipment. We build families, and our whole objective, for those that may not know, roughly 22 veterans take their lives every single day, and that's grossly understated. Our first responders are just as high, and we provide a PTSD meeting every Wednesday night at 7:30. So if any of you have veterans in your family, you know neighbors, anybody that needs to talk to fellow Marine or fellow veterans that that have the same problem, please invite them. This is pure led by veterans and first responders. And how we stay open, you know, we don't make a whole lot of money. We're funded through our civilian memberships. I lead the efforts towards fundraising events, and I want to thank you, City of Riverview, for allowing us to have that opportunity in August at Riverview Highlands. Golf events do well for us. It's one of our larger donations that we receive, and it's organizations like yourself that allow us to stay open and keep those doors open for our veterans and first responders. We were open throughout COVID. The state allowed us to stay open because we had veterans contacting us saying, I need to be there. Whether they train, whether they work out, it doesn't matter. They'll sit and talk to other people. And that's where we're gaining and we're winning. If we can save one life, then we've won. Our goal and objective is to buy a permanent home. And we want to stay downriver. This is our family. We've had other cities approach us about setting up a similar gym in their cities. And right now, we're not at the point where we can physically do it. But that is our objective, is to eventually branch out our brand. And like I said, it's a passion of mine. When I moved back home from Florida 5 years ago, I wanted an old school gym. Somebody told me about Victory Gym and I fell in love. Although I am not a veteran, a lot of family members, fathers, grandfathers were veterans, and I owe it to them for the freedom that they provide us U.S. citizens. And when Gary and I took over, we had less than $1,000 in our bank account. We didn't know if we were going to make another month. Since then, with all the efforts of our current board, we have a comfortable bank account. But it's still, at the end of the day, in 3 years, we don't know where we're going to be because we're on a 3-year lease. Each party can break that lease with 90 days. So our landlord can call us today and tell us you have 90 days to find another home, and we're screwed. So I've had many conversations with Dave, and you know, Riverview would be a perfect home, a permanent home. So I know we're trying, you know, having a golf outing, raising the funds will be a step towards that goal and objective, but we're a long way. We're all volunteers. No one gets paid. We work 40-hour work weeks. Gary and I probably do 30 more hours of gym time.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of the reasons I wanted John to come in is, so I've been with Victory Gym for 3 or 4 months now, and on the second day I was there, I walked in, they had a disabled vet teaching other disabled vets how to work out, accommodating their injuries. And it was absolutely amazing to see these people do this. It didn't matter if you were missing an appendage, if you just had PTSD, they were teaching these people how to work through their PTSD through physical fitness. I've never supported an organization as much as I've supported Victory Gym. When John says it's like a family, we walk in 3 months I know almost every member. I walk in, I can't get on a machine without somebody coming up and say hello to me. And it's, like John, I'm not a veteran. The vast majority, 90% of my family is veterans. John and I like to tease each other because I was disqualified at an early age, but it is an absolutely amazing organization. And with this golf outing that we're putting on, I wanted to put a face to the program to show the city how passionate its members are. So that's why we invited John in tonight. So
That was a great idea, and thank you for the presentation. I think we all support our vets, you know, the best we can, and I think the golf outing is something that we're pretty good at doing. So I mean, it's a perfect idea. You want to talk a little bit more about the outing, either of you guys?
So-
Where, when, how much, those types of things?
Want to, or you want me to take care? So that.
August 31st, we could
Yes.
collaborate. August 31st.
Yes. The entrance fee is $500 a team, or $125 a person. We reached out to multiple sponsors. I've reached out to all of the professional sports franchises and all the casinos as well. We're hoping for donations from each one of those. We have a lot of people already saying they're very interested in golfing with us. We're trying to get this as booked up as possible. And most importantly, we want to make this an annual outing. We want to make sure that this is something that not only Victory Gym can count on, but the city of Riverview can count on every year to bring in not only attention to our golf course, our city, but as well as Victory Gym. I reached out to Wyandotte, Trenton, obviously Riverview knows about it, and Southgate. I reached out to all police departments. And what I decided to do last week that I spoke with John about is if we get all 4 cities' police departments to sponsor at least one team from each department, I will pay out of pocket myself for a trophy that will be presented to the winning team every year. So I would love to see our 4 cities, if not, I'm always willing to include more. I'd love to see that trophy go to each police department who can win. And ideally, I'm guessing the city of Riverview better win it. So.
Got something for the fire department you're thinking about?
I was gonna say, you're
you
gonna
know what?
spark a rivalry.
Yeah.
That's even better. If I get fire and police, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff we have going on for this outing.
Who are they contacting, how?
Go ahead.
They'll be contacting me. All the entry fees as well as the foursomes will be mailed to Victory Gym, and then I'll put together a spreadsheet that will list everyone that's playing. Like I say, I can't thank Dave enough for what he's done and the help he's doing to make this probably one of the biggest golfing events I've ever been a part of. I've run 30, 40 golf outings down in Florida, my old job, and this is just phenomenal. I've never seen someone take the bull by the horn and run with it. You guys are fortunate to have someone like him on your team.
Okay, now they know you're lying.
Yeah, credibility.
Where's the swear jar?
Yeah, it all fell apart.
Yeah, John knows about the swear jar.
And I want to just twist it real quick, because often I'm asking people for help, and we need it to survive, right? But recently I went out, I changed my hat. I did a fundraiser for a 9-year-old boy at the gym, Henry's Lemonade Stand. And I had a goal of what I wanted to reach. I didn't hit it, but it was his best one-day fundraising event that he's ever had. And we got him $8,300.
Wow.
And we also put up ramps for veterans that are disabled. We work with Downriver for vets when they have needs. We've gone to veterans' homes to help them move. So we're more than just a gym. And it's true, we are a family.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy your trip, bud. Thank you. Get out of here.
Okay, back to 2-4, presentation by HydroCorp regarding the operation of the backflow inspection system. Gentlemen?
Well, good evening, council, mayor.
Sorry about the switcheroo. We can't
That's all right.
delay.
So, good cause. As council may know, you've contracted with HydroCorp to run our cross connections / backflow program to help us keep compliant with Eagle and Safe Water Drinking Act. Because this program will involve some short inspections, I've asked for Paul here to come from HydroCorp to explain how the program works, so that if council does get questions from residents, they'll be more informed on how to answer them.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name's Paul Patterson with HydroCorp. just briefly us, 40 years we've been doing this here in Michigan with about 150 plus utilities throughout the state. So appreciate you all approving our contract. We're looking forward to working with you. I think if I understood the ask, we're beyond the why. We're at the how. So, and mostly, I think the residential portion is the concern. Let me start there. The first thing we'll do is we'll sit down with Jeff and his team and kind of plot out a strategy, right? Because this isn't something we're going to get through every home in 1 year. It's a multi-year process. So we'll more than likely sit down and we'll break the city up into quadrants or zones geographically and start working our way through. Before we get to that point, we want to help and do as much as we can to provide information, public education, things like that. So some of the things we will do, and I always say every city I work with, every utility is a little bit different on how the best way to get information out is. So we'll be asking that in our startup meeting. Okay, what works for you? Some things we can provide. We will provide a hosted website. It will be a City of Riverview website that we'll put together and host. Our marketing team will do that. And we'll have all the program information. Suggest that once we get the quadrants laid out, we'll post a map of the city so everybody can see, what quadrant we're in and what year as we work our way through. There's educational videos, frequently asked questions, full-blown educational website. Beyond that, it's kind of like, okay, what's going to work here? A lot of cities are active on social media. We can do Facebook posts, X, anything like that. Or is it press releases, newsletters, mailers? That's where, we're going to come and talk and kind of figure out what's going to work best. Maybe it's a combination of everything. And we'll kind of figure that out. And by the way, I tend to talk a lot, so if anybody has questions, just cut me off. Once we get ready to actually start the boots on the ground portion, it's a bit of a process because we will have to schedule appointments. So we will build.
You're going to have to go into homes?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll be reaching out typically 3 to 4 weeks in advance, trying to fill those appointment slots. We'll have all the residents will have an option. They can either go online and they'll be able to see a calendar and pick their time and their slot, or they can pick up a phone call because you will have a dedicated customer service rep in the office that's assigned to the city. They can pick up the phone call and schedule an appointment that way. That notification we send will have information about the program, why we're doing it, and then again a link to the website for further information. As far as the process at the home, we try to be as non-intrusive as possible. Essentially, we need access to the basement or the area surrounding the water meter, if there's not a basement, mechanical room, something like that. And then the exterior of the property. We do not enter private bathrooms. It's just super intrusive, right? I want to ask our inspectors to have to go through somebody's master bedroom to get to the master bathroom. And I'm sure your homeowners don't want us doing that anyway. So, the basements are typically we're going to find the biggest hazards. Boilers, water-assisted sump pumps, water softeners, laundry sinks, things like that. All that stuff's gonna be in the basement typically. So that's where we'll focus on. Let me pause there for questions.
So, well, maybe you're gonna get there. You mentioned something, what are you looking for in that, whatever this cross-connection type thing is?
Sure. So, a cross connection is just, it's a plumbing term basically. It's any connection of piping from potable drinking water to something that you don't want to drink. That's the easiest way to explain it. So for instance, a boiler. If you have a hot, baseboard heating, you got a boiler, it's typically a closed system. The water in there becomes stagnant, the chlorine residual's gone. It can start growing things that we don't want to get back into drinking water. So according to plumbing code, there's specific things called backflow preventers for each one of those connections. So what we're looking is to make sure that those backflow preventers are there, and that they are the appropriate backflow preventer for each type of hazard. And again, in a home, it's 80-90% boilers, water softener drains, sump pumps, unprotected hose connections, and lawn irrigation.
It's an unprotected faucet, like on the exterior. Are you supposed to have backflows like on your spigot?
Yeah, anything per plumbing code, anything that you can connect a hose to is supposed to have at least a vacuum breaker. So that's actually part of our contract. If we go to a home and that's the only thing they need, we'll just provide them and they just screw right on. Where you put the hose, connect the hose, they just screw right on the end.
Oh, okay. So you have to add anything to the pipe or just?
No, it's a real simple fix. And that's
I saw something in the information you sent us that is pointing to a shower head, or is it a shower head hanging down? What would be the issue there?
If it hangs low enough to be inside the tub, then technically they would call it, the plumbing code would term that a submerged inlet. So if the bathtub, say you had a sewer backup and the bathtub fills up with sewer, then you have a direct connection between sewer and drinking water. So those also have a type of vacuum breaker. Again, we won't find those because we're not going into people's bathrooms, but it is part of the education that was part of the deal we'll call it a deal. Conversation I had with Eagle years ago when we started residential. We don't want to be that intrusive, so we're providing homeowners with education. When we're on site, we looked at this big stuff. Here's some things, how the fill valve in the toilet's supposed to be installed, the shower handle, things like that.
If someone wants you to check all those things?
Oh, if they ask, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
What if someone doesn't want to let you in their home?
Yeah.
Well, that's where it gets tricky, right?
But I'm sure that's a thing.
Yeah. Years ago I was really concerned with that, and now that we, and I'll tell you historically, like when we started up until 2016, 2017, we didn't do anything with residential homes because the state wasn't enforcing it. It's always been part of the rule, but they never pushed it. And about 2016, 17 is when they started. And that was a big concern of ours. I would say out of all the communities we've been in, they're all pretty similar, 80 to 85%. It's not a huge issue. It's that last 15 to 20. And I don't know if any of you have ever lived through like a water meter change-out program, anything like that.
We had that for the smart meters. Yeah.
Or your lead service line inventory you had to get in the house. It's kind of the same. So you probably already know who's going to be the biggest.
So let's just say if that happens, is there a certain percentage that we have to do to be compliant with Eagle?
No, I'm gonna say it's more they want to see that you're doing an effort to get into as many homes as possible.
So if half the residents said no, you're still making the effort and it's...
Well, at some point, they will push harder. So if you read their rules, the rules.
Whose rules is this?
Eagle. So it's actually lives in the Safe Drinking Water Act, so it's Public Act 399, and then specifically Part 14. It says every utility has to have this program, you have to do inspections. And then they reference something they call the guidance manual, so they have a cross-connection control guidance manual. And if you read the manual, you are supposed to get into every home at least once every 10 years, because it's not a one and done process, it's an ongoing forever. They're being a little lenient now because there's so many utilities that haven't done anything yet. So yes, they want to see progress. At some point, they will push harder. That's just how it works, right? We want to get everybody started, and then we kind of saw this with the commercial program even years ago.
And there's no cost to the resident, correct?
No,
Right.
no.
So I was reading the documentation, if you send a letter to a resident and they don't respond or make an appointment, that's still considered a contact and one less person on your contractual obligation to me. You know what I'm saying? If you have 2,500 people you need to reach and say 300 of them don't reply or allow you to inspect their thing, then you still met your quota if those 300 people aren't inspected, just as an example.
No, so we're contracted to complete 430 inspections annually. So we will do that. When it comes to people that don't respond, that's a conversation we'll have to have, with Jeff and maybe back here with the council. But the first several years, we really don't have we have yet to have a problem hitting our numbers, because we'll just move down the list. Again, depending on how the city wants to handle it. Because you have an ordinance, we'll review that. I haven't personally read it yet. But that's part of the startup process. We'll take a look at your ordinance, make any recommended ordinance changes, but I would be willing to bet in your ordinance, there's provisions for non-compliance.
Jeff, haven't in our past, haven't we had pretty good compliance? We haven't had a major issue. If I recall, when we did meters, we only had a handful.
Well, most people are understanding of it, so
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be a big issue.
Yeah,
Most people want to keep sewage out of their drinking water, so.
But the most
Good idea.
important part of this program, I think, is the commercial side of it. That's where you can find more
Yeah,
hazards.
problems there.
And this contract includes all the water in the city and all the businesses
Commercial
and
and
commercials.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The DPW is replacing meters, right?
We are.
Is that something to be done at the same time, have an inspection, meter done, so you're not duplicating?
Well, so that program hasn't started yet. The one we're doing right now is already completed, and it was for roughly 170 commercial meters. So unfortunately, that has already come to an end, but we are gonna start the next phase after July, hopefully. So yes, we could work on coordinating those efforts.
And that's a little more invasive than just coming in and inspecting.
Right.
It'll take a little time.
Yeah. Meter change out probably 20 minutes to an half hour.
And last question, the requirement also is to have backflow checked, like on an irrigation system, I think, what, every 2 years or something like that? Does this take place of that? I mean, if you got your
No.
thing inspected, then do you still have to get the certification?
They still have to be tested. So we're doing the visual inspection. It's much like a plumbing inspection, basically. But the owner would be responsible for any testing.
What if they're cut, capped, soldered, all that jazz? May have talked about this before, I can't recall. Is that a done deal at that point?
For like an irrigation system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
if-
for the old sprinkler, a lot of people have them, at least in my neighborhood, don't even realize they have them.
Right,
It just, they've
Yeah.
never been in use since they bought the house. you know?
right. And that's, yes, if they cut and cap that line, they're,
It's done.
it's fine. They don't have anything else to do. Yeah, and we always try to give alternatives. You know, there's always more than one way to do things. Water-assisted sump pumps, for instance, they're required to have it's called a reduced pressure backflow preventer. Those are tested. So every 3 years, they have to be tested by a licensed plumber, so there's a cost to that. So, you know, we tell the homeowner you can either do that or, you know, you can put in a battery backups sump pump rather than have the water supplied sump pump. It's a probably higher one-time cost, but then you don't have the every 3 years pay a licensed plumber to come out and test it.
About how long does it take for one inspection at a home?
20 minutes,
Okay.
half-hour time, yeah.
Of course,
On
there's...
average,
yeah.
and, you know, sometimes you get chatty homeowners and it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything lastly you want to leave us with?
No, I will actually, and I don't want to put anybody under, you know, any pressure. But I've worked with councils before. I've been doing this a long time. I've been with the company 20 years. If you really want to see the process so you can explain it to your constituents, we could schedule you guys first. Anybody who wanted to volunteer, and we can take a look, and you can walk through the process, see for yourself. Again, I'm not saying that to pressure anybody. That's the best way to
I would totally
really.
sign up for that.
That's the best way to really see what we do.
I think I can
Well,
speak for the
different
rest of
now.
council. I tell you that Brian would like to volunteer for it.
Brian.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You want to test
Here we go,
I'm
Zach.
adding more.
Special project.
Yeah, let's start with Jennifer Boyer with Tetra Tech and the landfill.
Yeah.
Jeff Kale joined her.
Yeah, these red ones are so much more comfortable than the other red ones.
Yeah. That's for sure.
I think they're maroon.
Yeah, okay.
Colorblind.
Well, let me start off. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. In 2019, when I had first started with Riverview in the sales position, that's when I started reading up on the PFAS topic, and the EPA had introduced some information, got to the state, and it was really brand new at that time. And 6 years later, we're at the point now where we've done some diligence in terms of from a PFAS treatment standpoint at the landfill. Costs, different types of systems and everything. So I felt it important to bring Jennifer in from Tetra Tech, our engineering company, not only to, show her face again, but kind of give us an update. If you remember back in February, we had talked about the RO system. And if you remember that presentation, that actually Ari was here with Jennifer and made that presentation. So I think it's important to kind of give you an update of kind of where we're at now, the diligence that we've been doing, hand in hand with Tetra Tech, kind of give you an update on the RO and other alternatives that we've been really diving into. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer at this point.
Okay, thanks. So back in February, when Ari was here, we were floating the idea of possibly having Tetra Tech manage the entire project, including managing the contractors and handling all of the contracts and everything. But we took it up to our management in corporate offices in California, and because of the risks with the project, which namely were liquidated damages and performance guarantees. They were not willing to take on the risk of the entire project. So we came back to the city and we started looking at ways to bid it out just as a standard design bid build project. But as we worked through the cost estimates for getting bonds for the project, the RO system, with all of the unknowns associated with trying to go out for bid while we're still developing the project, the price tag came up to upwards of $20 million. So that was not something the city could handle at the time. So since that time, we've been looking at, progressing with looking at the site evaluation and getting a location for the treatment facility, but we're looking at other technologies to meet the same goals, which is to reduce PFAS in the effluent going into the sewer. And that's going to be a requirement from DUA in May of 2026. So we have about a year to still build everything and get it in compliance. So at this point, we're looking at a different technology. It seems like the best one for the city's needs is going to be granulated carbon with an ion exchange following, and then a couple of filtration systems on either end of the system. That will effectively remove the current issues that you have with PCBs and phenols and biologic oxygen demand, but it will also, with the ion exchange and the filtration, will also remove the short chain PFAS and extend the life of the carbon as well. So you'll still have these medias that need to be changed out, hopefully less frequently, but the operation is very simple, and it will be a single system to treat all of the leachate and the condensate that we're getting from the RNG facility. So that's where we're at right now. We plan to request authorization to develop the bid documents for that system and get it out for bid in the next couple of months, so that we can start ordering the equipment and have everything on site and installed by next spring. The cost estimate for that system, including building a new structure and putting in an equalization tank, which is it's a bigger tank that allows us to bring all the sources in and let it mingle so that we get a more uniform stream into the treatment system. So those would be included as well. We're looking at between $10 and $12 million for that. So a significant reduction. And along with narrowing down the scope and the type of system, we've taken out some of the risk components as well. So that's another factor in bringing the price tag down. So, what did I miss?
I think you hit it spot on. You know, one thing about she mentioned the connections. So there's 3 separate connections right now, where it's all would be connected into one, and you have to make sure that system can take the influx of the volume, the flow from all 3, treat it, and then send it back. But that influx of flow is thousands of gallons per day, and that's really, you know, it's not just Riverview, you know, landfill. All the private landfills, the waste management landfills, the Republic landfills, other municipalities are most likely going to these types of systems. I can tell you that there's 2 counties that I know of that have installed different technologies to handle their flow, their volume per day. But when it rains the landfill, it takes us 2 to 3 days to recover. And what I mean by recover is it actually stops the flow a little bit of the leachate within the hill. So every rain event or water event that we have, it takes us that much time to recoup with our current water system. This kind of alleviates the opportunity down the road to handle that volume, coupled with the fact that the landfill will be closing, which won't generate that much leachate over time, especially when we put final cover, final cap, if you will, over the landfill. That'll help kind of secure any kind of holes that are in the hill on top and everything. That'll fill it in, which will help gas production. It'll help leachate control. But as time moves on and the landfill officially closes, that last dump, the next 30 years, we won't be producing as much leachate. And now we're just going to be, we're more worried about the water events, not so much the trash being disposed in the landfill, because we'll be closed. So that's kind of the future proofing, if you will, to a certain extent. So
I'd like to say 3 points. First, this system will eliminate, as designed, the pump and haul that we're currently
And
paying.
what are we spending then?
$600,000 to $750,000 a normal year. So that cash flow will be a savings back to the landfill. The second point is we did bench testing or pilot testing of our condensate and our leachate. So this technology seems to work and treat for PFAS. Councilman Workman said, we looked at the RO because the next affluent coming, maybe 5, 6, 7 years from now, will be, it appears to be microplastics. And that's the new PFAS. And we'll have to treat for that. When that, but that's still 7 years away. And the third thing is that, Jeff's not a professional water engineer. I'm not an environmental engineer, nor is Randy. So we added an outside water engineer to our team. There's offices in Wixom, but he's located in North Carolina. He's been up, saw our plant, so he's kind of our second set of eyes, if you will, so that we don't miss something. So he's collaborating with Tetra Tech on this program. And in general, they're both in agreement from the engineering side. There might be some disagreements on flows or volumes or size of building and the whole bit. So we just got to figure out how to beat the estimate. And I will be working with independent construction companies or general contractors to see our building, the cost, and see. They used industry standard. Well, what does it actually cost to build what we need? I'm hopeful that bonding, when it goes out, will be around $10 million or less. That's the number, not 12, but 10.
And
But there's no other way.
You said that the condensate is from the plant, correct?
Correct.
So I think the plant has been in production long enough, so the amount of condensate's predictable now.
Fairly predictable, yep. And that's the problem, because the hard thing is the condensate has an oily substance. It's got oil, so there's going to have to be additional equipment to separate the oil from the liquid before it can then go onward into the process of being cleaned through GAC or carbon and then resins. And who knows? Maybe this system will clean microplastics, maybe it won't, but maybe we'll have to throw something else. But in 6 years, they've come a long way in technology in 6 years. It's going to be another 6 before the next affluent, being microplastics, might come into the equation. So we have a team. The team is Jeff Kay, Jennifer and Ari, and Tetra Tech's people. Randy, myself, Alyssa, and now this company, CEC. The engineer is Ivan Cooper. So you might see some paperwork coming forward for him so that we can throw that into this project cost as well. That's our second set of eyes.
And how would we pay for this?
Bonding.
There is nothing that we can get from the state and the Fed, anyone that's, these politicians are very forthcoming and telling us things are bad now, but they've been dumping fluoride in the water for years and yada yada. We won't go there, but what I will say is, where does this stop before they start shelling out money to these small communities? Because we're doing just fine. We're muddling along, but I can sit up in a fancier chair than I got here and make all these rules too and say, you gotta pay for it. That
They call
seems
me-
backwards.
That's an excellent point. We've had that.
Unfunded mandate.
Yeah,
That's
And they're
exactly
very
what it
good
is.
at it.
We've had that conversations with Linting's office, Camilleri's office, actually just within the last month or two. Because they always say, what do you need money, what projects for? So, and that was like on the top of the list. And I think we even said $10 million. And then they wrote it down and who knows where it's going to go, but.
Or you
those are the
just
type of
don't
things that-
mandate these and then we win it.
Yeah. Well, yes, we agree.
Sorry.
Have we looked at reducing the amount of water getting in the system?
Yeah, there,
Is there any technologies for that?
there are certain things that you can provide liners and cover with liners, but we're so, as I'm told by the engineers, that we're so close to the end of our life of the landfill that.
Could that be part of our cap?
It could be, yeah. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, as we start doing closure functions, we can draw on those funds. Right? Is that what you said? Closure, post-closure funds, when you're doing closure activities?
I think the problem now is that your closure escrow is collateral for your
Yeah,
financial assurance.
yeah,
So I don't know if you can use it right now or not.
okay. But we did put in the budget that we have closure expenses of $1 million a year, that we're gonna start putting liner and dirt for $1 million a year.
Any other questions?
I gotta tell you,
Go ahead.
I don't think this council, at least I'm not aware of the intricacies of this. We've not had meetings, we've not discussed it, and all of a sudden it's being brought forward like this. We don't know any of the alternatives that we might be curious about. We don't know anything.
Well, we'll be happy to provide you, we still have to move forward with bidding.
It's not just me, it's
No,
it's the rest of
We'll
this
be-
council.
Yeah, and we'll be happy to provide you with all of that. We just gotta get the bid documents designed and bid. That doesn't mean we gotta accept them. You vote on the accepting of bid documents or the bid. All we're doing tonight is informing you of where it went from and to. And now, we'll get bid docs for just the ability to go out to bid. And then we can still have more meetings at every study session we can have.
What's
And
the
then
time frame we're working with?
May of 2026.
Now, we
Everything has
keep
to be
hearing-
done?
We keep hearing that number, but that's really not in concrete. We could pump and haul and instead of rushing to get something done, we could take time to make sure we do it correctly instead of, okay, council, you got till this date, and if you don't do it this date, you're screwed. No, you can pump and haul, and you can take time to look things over. So let's not be car salesmen here.
Yeah.
No, well, the pump and haul would be all of the fluids because
I
they're not.
understand that.
And then with sending PFAS to DUA, there's fines.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of fines could be liability,
Mm-hmm.
meaning personal liability. Knowing, yes, Jeff?
We have a lot of studies already. We've been looking at this PFAS treatment stuff for several years. We've had pilot tests and veg tests and done different mixing ratios of all the different sources of the leachate. So we have a lot of data backing up what we're presenting as a solution. We've been looking at the RO system for about a year, I think, with already being involved in looking at the design and everything. So I think we have the data that you're looking for. And
Well,
like,
Jennifer, in all fairness, I don't want to get into a cell 7 situation again that keeps growing. I don't want to do that again.
I can understand that.
We were not informed well on cell 7, this entire council, or the previous council. And landfill committee wasn't quite sure. We're told, go ahead and approve this because it needs to be done. And we were doing that. So we put a cell in and it cost us a lot of money, a lot more than was projected. And I don't want to get into that again. I don't want to get into an Allen Park thing where all of a sudden, okay, We started it, now it's 10 million. We need another 15, we need another 20. I don't want to hear that. We've been through this once. I'm not going through it again. I'm just letting you know that. At least for the next 16 meetings. So you hold it off for 16 meetings, you do anything you want. But I'm not going through it.
Valid.
Ryan?
Question. So this would, the granulated carbon would be instead of the RO system, correct? And this is just as effective at reducing and eliminating the PFAS out of the water so that we can then be disposed of into the groundwater, right? Is that still the plan?
It's
Not into the
effective,
DUA system, but.
it's effective at removing PFAS. It's not as effective globally as RO because RO takes out everything. But the system that we have put together with the RO followed by the ion exchange with the filters before and after will remove PFAS.
Okay, so a thought or a question would be is, why wasn't this offered as one of the options instead of the high price tag RO?
It actually was several years ago on the table, and we were progressing through, I think we got up to the pilot test for that one. But different things happened where the project was canceled. So we have been down this road.
The new consultant said, he mentioned that getting a discharge to the creek in a very highly populated area is very difficult because it's the same public hearings as an expansion. And so.
Does that mean we're going to the sewer?
Yeah, we're still going to the sewer with that, which is less costly than pumping and hauling.
Still cost.
Yeah, but it's still way less than pumping and hauling. But the people who get the NIPSI permits that go right to a creek are in very rural areas. Because you gotta have all these public, first of all, even with an RO system, you got a year to 2 years of data that you gotta collect and prove it in the water. Then once you meet the regulations in the water to Eagle, then Eagle says, okay, now it's public hearing time. Which you have everybody that is associated with that creek, from here then down, the whole down river, down through Trenton and wherever else it goes to the river. If it's the Frankenpoet or if it's the Blakely, they have a right to a public hearing and meeting.
Which we would have done even with the RO system, correct?
With the RO, not with this one.
Not with this one.
No, because this
It's
goes
not
to
going
DUA.
into the creek.
Well, that's the point I was trying to make, is if you wanted to get to the point where it's clean enough that you could just eliminate the water into the creek, that is possible.
With the RO.
Only with the RO, not with this. So this doesn't clean it to a high enough level where it could be
Correct.
disposed of.
It cleans it to the fluids that are going to be under our current permit that's coming in May. For PFAS, BODs, phenols, and PCBs.
And are we building into the size of the amount of leachate that we are treating now, or because it's going to be less in the future?
Well, we have
So
to
are we
build into-
overbuilding to
Well,
compensate for what we're
yeah.
getting now?
Well, we know it's going to be this way for at least the next 5 years. So we got to look at the pump and haul charges. If we build it too small and have to pump and haul more, then there's really no savings. And what happens if we calculate there's going to be less leachate and it doesn't subside? And you're going to have this pump and haul fee that's going to be millions and millions. That's not capitalized, right? That's a period cost. Where you're putting the capital cost in place to treat all that so that you won't have any pump and haul operating costs. So you're switching a capital asset for an operating expense.
Understood. If you're bonding and paying interest, that interest on top of it could be worth doing the hauling.
Yeah, well, that's not how they presented it so far, so we'll share that with you. We're going to share all of the slides that we've been discussing with everybody tomorrow morning. They'll be all out to everyone. So that you see exactly what we've been looking at and studying, hard studying since April 5th. We were studying way earlier than that, but that was all RO in February and March. Again, we gotta do something, so we're gonna bring the documents forward to bid it out. That doesn't mean you have to accept the bids, but we've gotta get moving because we're gonna have to organize the equipment ordering and the building size and all of that because of timing.
But like Councilman Workman said, I mean, obviously this is important that we get it done in a timely manner, but if we don't, we can pump and haul until we get it done. And is there another, even with the plan is up and operational, will there still be times that we have to pump and haul equipment down for maintenance or those types of things?
We're building an equalization tank that's gonna hold a number of days, so we'll have a whole week of fixing the plant if it's down, so we don't have to pump and haul. That's the idea. The
Because you
equalization.
can eat up that savings real quick if you have a couple of events.
Absolutely. But we can show you the pump and haul, the costs.
Any other comments?
What was it,
Questions?
$7.9 million if we don't do anything and we just pump and haul all our lead chain? Is
I
that?
think it was 17 million,
For how
Yes.
long?
the 20-year life of the system.
Wow.
I thought the first 2 years were the high ones too, like 7 million or something, 7.9 million. That's a lot of cash. You're not bonding, pump it and haul, because that's an operating cost.
Yeah.
You're bonding only capital costs.
Wait, anything else?
I do have one
Okay,
more
go ahead.
update. The gas expansion project, the GCCS construction, the drilling has been completed, so the contractor's gonna be on site this week. Hopefully the weather cooperates. They have some pipes to still install and get hooked up, but the drill rig is leaving the site, so all of the really visible work is done. The rest is just connecting everything back together and making sure it's.
And kudos to Jeff and his team and you. We had all that drilling with 0 complaints.
Oh,
Odor
awesome.
complaints or noise complaints.
Very efficient.
I did not hear of any in City Hall. I normally would hear of it during the drilling program.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so Ohio,
Thank you.
you already did it, so you talked so long, I don't think you have anything left, do you?
Just one project.
Okay.
They're gonna be starting the earthwork on the pickleball courts. They start today cutting, so hopefully by the end of the week we'll have that paved. Then they'll move on to connect the utilities, and hopefully by the end of the month we'll have a nice facility.
Well, awesome.
How many additional courts again?
3,
We have 3, we're gonna get 3 more.
yes.
Okay.
And the demand is there, the line is.
They were all packed on this past weekend.
Yep.
Again, Clark Avenue Water Main, Midsummer, lead services will be starting as soon as start again, making appointments with the residents, so we have 65 of those council approved. Sectioning after July 1st, and I'll be bringing forward in front of the council the paving at the DPW yard, or Jeff's yard, basement. That's the next meeting.
Library paving and all of that?
Library paving, I had a meeting with the contractor. They're ready to get going as soon as we figure out how we're gonna extend the contract. And it's a big extension from what they did at the boat ramp, similar type of work.
Mm-hmm.
John sealing and seal coating. If we're willing to do that, we can get them extended and get them started. The only one that's different would be the parking lot across from the library that needs to be reconstructed.
They're not reconstructing the library parking lot at all with all those
No, it's
holes?
just going to be sealing and joints and seal coating for now.
But what about the holes? Are they gonna patch
They
it?
patch.
Okay.
Again, I don't think there's enough that should be saying that. It's going to cost lots of money to reconstruct that parking lot.
Okay.
Thank you, Sal.
Thank you.
Dave Skirdo.
Sure, thank you. See, last month, we had 2 new businesses open up. One is called River Rise Auto Sales. They're reoccupying a building right next to the sleep clinic. Another one's called Green Lotus Aesthetics, and they're occupying a space on one of the medical buildings on King Road. We are working with to help 3 applicants get through the planning commission. The first one is, they're still working on the Panda 2 cannabis business, which is over in that vacant property next to the mobile station, and between that and the Taco Bell. Second one is Fleet Fix. They do truck repair. They want to occupy a building on Quarry Road. And third one is an RV storage business. They want to reoccupy a property on Nixon.
Awesome.
Questions?
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I think that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, any other business council wants to bring up at this time?
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Can anybody tell me if the sidewalk along King Road, is that private? The person that is adjacent to that, it's right across from like the fire department, Trenton Fire Department, or is that city sidewalk?
I'm not sure. Jeff?
I have to look into it, I'm not sure either.
Would you look into it for us, Jeff? And get back to me so I can get back to Councilman Webb?
Absolutely.
And if you don't mind, when you're out, can you take a quick look at that? I know I was supposed to ask you last week to take a quick look at that too. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, that's all.
All right. Anything else? Now's the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, you know, the whole speech, just come up here.
I was going to, but you wore me out, so go home.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Right, with that, we're done. Thank you, everybody.